The 2007 Patriots are arguably the greatest team of all time, one win away from the perfect immortal season, but more importantly, they kick-started the next revolution of offensive football. By innovating a new style that has become the league meta to this day, they destroyed defenses that were not prepared for the next step in offensive evolution. By using 5'8", 185-pound Wes Welker, the Patriots brought the college game to the pro game. They scored a then-record 589 points and changed football forever. Today we'll dive into how they changed it, how they used Wes Welker, and why NFL defenses never saw it coming. To kick us off, the Patriots put Brady in shotgun 49.4% of the time, more than any team in the league. Back then, teams stayed under center way more, where you can run the ball better, since there are more concepts you can run from under center and the running back has more of a head start. Before 2007, the NFL was a running league. Teams aligned in shotgun just 26.6% of the time, whereas nowadays, the league average is closer to 70%. Teams like the Ravens operate out of the gun 95% of the time. Shotgun allowed Brady to see the field better, get away from the defensive line quicker off the snap, and see the backside of concepts easier too. But the real difference the Patriots made was adding Wes Welker to the mix, and let me tell you why it completely changed football. Let's quickly do this again. 11 guys on offense, we have our quarterback and 5 offensive linemen, so that means we have 5 skill position players that we can mix and match. 2 receivers, 2 running backs, a tight end, 2 tight ends, so then take off a running back, etc., etc. Defenses almost always match their personnel based on how many receivers the offense puts on the field. So since we used to have a running league, where teams used 2 or more running backs 39.4% of the time, defenses just needed 2 cornerbacks to match. Well, the Patriots took off their second tight end or their fullback for the slot receiver, the third receiver, which was not a thing in 2007. This is why Welker changed the game. Defenses needed to match with a third corner to match the third receiver, a nickel corner, because there were now 5 defensive backs, which can be a safety or corner, 5, nickel, you get it. The Pats forced NFL teams to create a new position by having a third corner good enough to start, and by playing 3 receiver sets 70% of the time, the league average was just 50, the Patriots exploded. Not only did defenses now need 3 good corners, but you needed a corner who had always played outside to play inside, where Welker has a 2-way go. Outside cornerbacks have the advantage of using the sideline, so they don't really have to guard like a deep out route in the same way. But now your third best corner has to guard left, right, deep, shallow against lightning quick white chocolate, and teams didn't stand a chance. Welker led the league with 112 catches and racked up 1,175 yards and 8 touchdowns. Teams were deathly afraid of getting Randy Mossed over the top, so Welker destroyed them underneath and in the intermediate. Defenses just did not have an answer. Nobody could guard him one-on-one in man coverage. He was too quick, his routes too precise, and a third best corner in your team that wasn't specialized to play inside was just not a match for a new style of receiver with incredible skill. All defenses want to play one-on-one man coverage 100% of the time if possible. If we can lock up each of their guys, then we can bring another rusher or add a deep safety, on and on. But when you have Welker inside torching nickel corners, and Randy Moss outside who is unguardable deep, underneath on slants, anywhere on the field, defenses were forced to play tons of zone coverage, and Brady and Welker ripped them up underneath. Even further constraining defenses, they always had to worry about Randy deep. He's arguably the best deep threat ever, arguably best receiver ever. So defenses were A, forced to play zone coverage like I said, and B, forced to play 2 high safeties to make sure Randy didn't kill them over the top. Basically, he was the deep vertical threat, and Wes was the underneath horizontal threat, and the Patriots set records. Their favorite Welker concept was the drive concept, but they had a million different variations off of it. Drive is a dig route with a shallow route underneath, designed to stretch out the zone linebackers in the middle. In zone coverage, cornerbacks play zones outside and don't travel inside like in man coverage, so it was easy to get Welker matched on a linebacker over the middle. If he saw the linebacker sitting and waiting, he'd sit down and chop you up with paper cuts 6 yards at a time. Then they'd dress up the concept a little differently, they'd motion him from out wide, and now with the linebacker looking to jump the route he just saw, Wes can go to work and burst past him. And despite the fact this is Hall of Fame linebacker Zach Thomas, he's no match for the speed of Welker. You can just see the skill from this angle. His timing, pacing, he's setting up his route while still moving vertically, he's frozen Thomas in place while undercutting him so he can't contact him. Wes Welker on any linebacker was a complete mismatch, and you have to remember, linebackers then and linebackers now are completely different beasts. Zach Thomas weighed in at 245, which was normal in 2007. Linebackers then had to be beefed up to stop the run, take on pulling guards, smash fullbacks in the alley. But now think Fred Warner types. It's all about speed and covering these slot guys in space. Nowadays, it's common to see a 230-pound linebacker every single Sunday, whereas back in 2007, they were almost completely non-existent. And because defenses knew their corners couldn't cover these receivers anyway, defenses blitzed the Patriots a ton. But because they had to play 2 high safeties to cover Randy Moss, and because they couldn't play man coverage because they'd get torched, Welker was just one-on-one on linebackers in zone, and it simply wasn't fair. The league was just not ready to counter this spread offense attack. They weren't nearly as sophisticated in their coverage rules. They only played a few coverages, so the Patriots' new concepts and how they taught those concepts put them at an even further advantage. They used read routes where they'd give Moss, Welker, two-way goes, options in the route during the play, where based on where a defender was positioned, they could run away from him. Check it out in this 2-play example. The Pats loved using a classic West Coast concept called arches. Sean Payton calls it doubles, where the tight end Ben Watson runs an eliminator route to clear out the coverage. Then Welker fakes outside and cuts in on a quick slant behind him, and it's money. Well, teams watch film, they game plan for concepts they know are coming. But the Patriots, as I said, had options in their routes, and Brady had an insane level of chemistry with Welker, with Randy. They changed what offensive football was. The Cowboys know the quick slant and arches is coming, so they trap Welker with 2 defenders in case he wants to sit down or go back out. But he instead takes this vertical, which isn't usually the way arches is taught, and you can see how hard it is to actually double a receiver. People just want to say, oh, why aren't we doubling Welker or Randy? Well, it's not nearly as easy as it sounds. And even though this is a Welker breakdown, number 81 played a huge part in this offensive revolution. Defending him one-on-one in man was an absolute joke. There was nobody in the league who could hang with him. And so yeah, we'd see teams consistently put a second safety over the top, but Brady would still trust him to snatch the ball out of the air and moss away no matter how many guys were back there. He also had deep option routes, which were brand new to how the Patriots installed their concepts. He'd run full speed at safeties and then be allowed to read the leverage and either break inside or out, just go opposite of where the defender is, and teams couldn't do anything. Defenses were so terrified of him deep, they had to put more defenders over the top of him, which would create wide open looks for Dante Stallworth or Jabbar Gaffney, who had great seasons in their own right. And then, of course, Welker got to eat even more too. Like I said, the coverages weren't too sophisticated. Teams weren't ready for this new system. But when facing Nick Saban in Week 7 like we saw earlier, he had some ideas, but they didn't work. When the Patriots motion their running back outside and a cornerback follows, this is a zone coverage indicator, because if you're playing man, that puts Welker on linebacker Zach Thomas, but the Dolphins are trying to trick Brady while making sure to double Randy and are actually playing man. But this offense has the ultimate equalizer in Wes Welker, who's a mismatch for Thomas. He's a mismatch for outside corners, safeties, nickels, anybody. We don't have to get into why the Patriots lost the Super Bowl. That's for another day. This day is all about how a small 5'8", 185-pound receiver changed the future of football. He went on to have 4 more seasons of 110-plus catches, 1,100-plus yards, and his influence on the game still remains today. He created a new position. He ushered in a new style of football. kick-started the spread passing game revolution and helped Tom Brady and the Patriots create arguably the best offense and team of all time. After this season, defenses were forced to get smaller and quicker so they could defend all the space that offenses were creating with lighter personnel and more spread-out formations. And now defenses are smaller than ever, but this is why football is so great. The game is always changing, always evolving. Now that defenses are small, it's time for offenses to get big and go back to pounding the rock. The game is always changing, but it's important to remember why each note of history was played. And in 2007, the man who changed football forever was Wes Welker.